In federal court in Atlanta, a jury has just awarded $100 million against a police officer and his employer, the city of Atlanta. This was a Section 1983 civil lawsuit with allegations of excessive force by a police officer. It was a taser case. The jurors during the trial were shown body cam footage of what happened. They specifically awarded $40 million against the defendant police officer, Officer Grubbs, and $60 million against his employer, the city of Atlanta. I looked up all the court paperwork on Pacer for anything that I could find that was interesting. Here's what happened as best as I can tell. I did not pull this off of the media reports. I got this straight out of the court paperwork. So a lot of this comes from the depositions. I haven't seen a trial transcript yet. And as you know, in federal court, we have no video cameras videoing what happened, so you can't follow it on YouTube. So this is when it happened, July 10th, 2018. Officer Grubbs says that he observed Jerry Blasingame near a roadway in Atlanta and believed that he was panhandling. Panhandling, or soliciting for monetary contributions, is a misdemeanor in Georgia. So Officer Grubb exits his vehicle, he approaches Jerry, and he observes Jerry standing near traffic, but he testified in his deposition that Jerry appeared to be asking for money, though he never saw him receive money. So as Officer Grubbs walks towards Jerry, Jerry notices him walking towards him, and then he attempts to flee on foot. Grubbs orders Jerry to stop. Jerry does not verbally respond. Instead, he just continues to run away from Officer Grubbs. Jerry then steps or hurdles over a guardrail, and Officer Grubbs pursues. As Jerry navigated the guardrail, and Officer Grubbs states in his deposition that Jerry swung an arm at him but missed, and that's when he tased him. Now, Jerry has no recollection, unfortunately, of the event, so he was unable to give his side of the story. So, allegedly, a swing and a miss, undisputed no contact. After traversing the guardrail, so now he's at the top of a steep slope, and that's how this injury happened. Jerry continues to flee, so Officer Grubbs draws his taser, and he tases Jerry in the back. When Jerry was tased, at the time he was descending this steep hill. The tasing caused Jerry to lose his footing, and he tumbled down the hill, and he hit his head at the bottom. After Officer Grubbs tased Jerry, Jerry fell. He struck his head on a concrete pad of a traffic control or utility box. Now, the city of Atlanta concedes that once Officer Grubbs made contact with Jerry at the utility box, Jerry was in custody. Actually, I would argue that as soon as the taser barbs hit Jerry, he was in custody. Officer Grubbs then called dispatch for medical assistance. Jerry was hospitalized, and he received medical treatment on the scene. But he was later charged with misdemeanors for violating the state law, pedestrian soliciting on roadway. He was also charged with the state law of obstructing law enforcement officer, of course. And callously, Officer Grubbs and his supervisor personally traveled to the hospital to deliver these criminal charges to Jerry. Wasn't that nice of them? Unfortunately, as a result of this incident, Jerry was left a quadriplegic, and Jerry had, again, no recollection of the day of this incident. And he now requires around-the-clock specialized medical care where he resides at a long-term facility specializing in traumatic brain injury patients. So being an arrest on the street, not a pretrial detainee or prisoner, on the issue of whether this was excessive force, we look at the Graham factors. Number one, the severity of the crime he was alleged to have committed was very, very minor. It looked like to the officer that he was asking people for money, and he didn't even see people receive money. Number two, Jerry was fleeing the officer, but they didn't know why. There was no verbal response. They didn't say that they saw any weapons on him or him threatening anybody. So again, it goes in favor of an absolutely excessive use of force. That's all they had. The only Graham factor that is really in dispute here, in my opinion, is the last one, whether there was any immediate threat to anyone's safety. Now, all the officer alleged is that there was basically a swing and a miss. Apparently, the evidence is that Jerry was tased in the back. So we know that he wasn't hit, the officer wasn't hit, and we know that Jerry was tased in the back. So that doesn't look good when, for the jury. And the jury ultimately decides whether or not there was any sufficient safety threat to justify a tasering. There also was a Monell claim here, and what that is a pattern or practice claim. And there wasn't a whole lot of meat on those bones that I could see in the court paperwork. Basically, they alleged that there was a custom and practice of allowing officers to get away with the use of excessive force without a whole lot of accountability. And that's sort of the process everywhere. But hey, in this case, that was worth $60 million. Damages in this case, I took a look at the numbers, and listen to this. A future medical expense plan was submitted to the jury establishing over $16 million in future medical expenses, which is just sad here. Past medical expenses as of the date of the trial were already up to over $3.5 million. So this is a massive verdict that will no doubt send appropriate shockwaves through the offices of law enforcement risk managers across the country. But it does come at a large price to Jerry. I don't know of anyone who would trade a life as a quadriplegic in a long-term care facility for $100 million. Fact is it never should have happened. Maybe it should have been $200 million. As always, thanks for watching. You'll find more information at the link below to the blog at thecivilrightslawyer.com. If you have a video you want me to see, please use the submission link in the description or at the blog. If you want to learn more about these cases and your constitutional rights, please subscribe, hit the bell notification so you don't miss future stuff. Please also comment with your thoughts about this case. Do you think $100 million is fair? If you want to support the channel, please consider clicking the join button on YouTube and becoming a channel member or sponsor. Remember, freedom is scary. Deal with it. See you next time.